Welcome to the DIY Off-Grid channel, guys. I'm your host, Rancher Pete, and today we'll talk about how green renewable energy systems really are. A routine topic that comes up on our live streams. We have viewers that to this day still believe renewable energy systems cause more pollution or has a negative carbon footprint, and unfortunately, it simply could not be further from the truth. Now, back in the year 1980, the average solar module production cost was some $35 per watt. Now, fast forward to 1990, that dropped down to roughly $12 per watt, dropping down to $6 per watt by 2000 and just over $2 per watt by 2010. This went down to just 30 cents per watt by 2020, and as of today, the freight on board cost from tier 1 solar panel suppliers is just under 10 cents per watt. If we were to contextualize the cost of these solar panels, these prices take into account all the costs associated with manufacturing a product, including all the raw materials, all processing costs with manufacturing the solar cells, labor for assembling cells into modules, testing, validation, and verification of the final product. Basically, all fossil fuel or any other energy source required to manufacture the panels would be factored into the final cost of the panels. Now, some of the top panel manufacturers have published their energy consumption figures for ESG reporting purposes, and I've been able to track down SunPower's 2021 figure of 268 watt hours consumed to manufacture a solar module per watt. The EPBT, or energy payback time, shows how long it takes for a given panel to produce the same amount of energy used to manufacture the given panel, and their published figures are 0.13 to 0.45 years for one of their modules deployed on a ground mount system. Now, just to dig a little bit deeper, I wanted to see if these numbers really do reflect the amount of energy needed to produce the panels. Now, most of SunPower's panels are not made in the US, but I did some digging to see how many BTUs are needed to produce a kilowatt hour of electricity from coal, natural gas, and petroleum-based utility scale generators here in the United States. That number is around 7,700 BTUs for natural gas to 11,500 BTUs for petroleum. Now, using that lower figure of 7,700 BTUs for natural gas, a baseload gas turbine generator, which is what a utility company uses to produce electricity with natural gas, the absolute minimum cost to produce 1 kilowatt hour of energy is roughly about 5 to 7 cents, taking fuel costs and relevant overhead into account. Now, at 268 watt hours, or let's just say over a quarter of a kilowatt hour, the energy input cost comes out to about 1.3 to 1.9 cents per module, which would make sense given the current module pricing trend. Now, how long do solar modules last? A good quality module from SunPower, for example, they guarantee a performance output of 90% over 40 years on their latest Maxion line of products. And even the lowliest of module manufacturers these days guarantee at least 80% output after 25 years. On an annual basis, cities with the lowest amount of sunlight is on the order of about 1,000 hours to about 3,000 hours in areas where they get the most sunlight, which means a 1 watt panel can produce 1,000 to 3,000 watt hours of energy per year. Now, the above 0.13 to 0.45 years figure includes other components of a solar installation in addition to the solar panel itself. So if we're talking strictly about the payback period for the module itself, we're looking at just 1 to 3 months. If the panels continue producing power into year 25, even in the worst case scenario of 3 months payback, that solar module is still putting out 100 times more energy than required to manufacture. So I looked into the idea, where that idea came from as far as solar modules not being green and requiring more energy to manufacture originated from. It appears most of the calculations are based on those older cost figures, where it indeed did require quite a bit more energy to manufacture these modules on a per watt basis. Just as with any other product you can go out there to purchase, the cost takes into consideration all labor, materials, energy, and logistics costs associated with production. So there absolutely was a time 10 plus years ago when it would have been difficult to justify the cost of going with solar. Now, fast forward to 2024, and that's simply not the case. Now, having said that, that's just for solar panels. I did look into the figures, the energy analysis done for wind turbines by Vestas, one of the largest wind turbine manufacturers in the world, and even taking into consideration the energy required for dismantling and disposal of the said wind turbines, the energy payback period was also just a matter of 0.26 to 0.57 years, which seems about right because the LCOE, or levelized cost of energy, from wind energy is not too different from that of solar photovoltaics. Now, any serious developer looking at wind and solar have to look at the levelized cost of energy from said sources, because unlike fossil fuel plants, all the costs associated with manufacturing the solar or wind farm is almost entirely paid for upfront. The discount rate, or the cost of capital, becomes a big factor when calculating the energy costs for renewables, because those interest rates will directly impact the cost of energy per kilowatt hour over the life of the power plant. Now, as of this year, the LCOE of solar and wind are the lowest overall compared to any fossil fuel, nuclear, or hydroelectric power plant. So as far as costs are concerned, you really can't beat renewables in this day and age. Solar panels and wind turbines, they aren't perfect, but they are an undeniable step in the right direction. Now, the energy used to produce them is quickly offset, and their environmental benefits far surpass that of fossil fuels. Now, as renewable systems become more efficient and manufacturing processes improve, they will only get greener. It's not just about reducing emissions, it's also about investing in a cleaner, more sustainable future for generations to come. So thank you for tuning into the DIY Off-Grid channel today. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and share. Let's keep the conversation going, guys, about making smarter, greener choices. Until next time, stay sustainable.